everyone, how's it going? So in case you're new here, hi, my name is Atousa, I'm a third year medical student at the University of Birmingham, and I'm going to be making a video every day in the month of November. Now today I want to talk to you guys about preparing for medicine interviews. Now I know that YouTube is not short of videos on how to prepare, how to answer questions, but today I kind of want to put together a very fundamental and basic guide on how you can start to prepare. Before you start looking at interview questions, before you start practicing your confidence and the way that you speak, before all of that, I think there are a number of fundamental things that would be very beneficial for you to know from the beginning. So I've essentially put together kind of like a little mini document pack of a number of things that is very, very helpful for you to know and for you to learn. And I'm going to switch to a screen capture in a minute and show you what those are. But basically, the whole aim of this is for you to get an idea of what a typical medical student or future doctor is going to be like in terms of some of their characteristics and some of their attributes. Because I think it's important that if you're able to convey this throughout the interview itself, you're already putting yourself a step ahead and you're already making yourself stand out even more, even before going into and actually practicing answering questions. And actually, in my Medicine Diaries videos, when I shared with you how I started to prepare for my personal interview, and for me that was an MMI interview at Birmingham. But yeah, when I started preparing for that, I've actually made a video like documenting how I started, and a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video are exactly the things that I myself used. So I personally found them really helpful, and I hope they can be helpful to you too. Alright, as I said, I'm going to be making this like very, very basic. So to begin with, what are medical interviews? What do they consist of? What are they going to be expecting from you? How can you prepare? Just what are they? It may seem like a simple question, but having a good answer to this will just help you build on top of that as you go along. So just switching to my screen capture now. So the first website that I want to share with you guys is the Medic Portal, and this is a page all about the guide to medical interviews. Now, as you can see on the side, you've got a number of things. So for example, medical school interviews explained, exactly what they are. There are two types of interviews. So this will be your standard panel interview versus an MMI. Then you've got a little bit of information on the changes that are going to be made in 2021 because of the pandemic situation, and a variety of other important information. So if I just scroll down, as you can see, everything is divided into sections, and as I said, it might seem a little bit basic, but having a good understanding of all of these things is really, really important. So that's number one. Now, the second most important thing, I think, is to get a bit of a background. Now, what I mean by background information is essentially what I was saying at the start of the video about getting a better understanding of the qualities and attributes that are required as doctors and as medical students. And in order to get a good understanding of these, there are a number of really, really important documents that I just want to share with you now. And everything that I'm going to be mentioning now is going to be linked below and signposted, so you'll easily be able to find them and have a read for yourself. Okay, so the first document that I think is super important, and I think this was one of the first ones that I myself started with when I was preparing, is a statement on the core values and attributes needed to study medicine. Now, this is a 2018 update. From my understanding, it's the latest one, and it is from the Medical Schools Council. Now, if I just scroll down a little bit, just to give you an idea. So yeah, you've got a little bit of an introduction that explains things, but essentially it is, as it says on the tin, it is a document that just talks to you about all of the attributes that are very important. So if you are able to show that you have an understanding of these and even be able to demonstrate some of them in your interviews, then you're already showing the interviewers that you've got some of these skills from the get-go. So let me just load up the next document. So the second document is a document by the General Medical Council, and it is Outcomes for Graduates. Now, in this document, they have essentially listed all of the things that they require their graduates to know. And I don't mean in terms of like scientific information, but if I just scroll down to the content section, so you have got things like professional values and behaviors, professional skills, professional knowledge. And within these categories, you've got a whole array of things from legal responsibilities, communication and interpersonal skills, clinical research and scholarship, and all of these things that are really important to know eventually, but if you already know them now, they can only help you to get there. And finally, the grandfather of all medical documents when it comes to this general region is, of course, the GMCs, Good medical practice. Now, the reason why I said this is like the grandfather of all documents is because you would have probably come across this when you were preparing for your UCAT exams, if that is something that you sat for medical schools, because a lot of the information in here will be able to help you with your situational judgment. And you will be coming across lots of these as you go through medical school, and you will certainly be coming back to it when you're preparing to sit for your SJTs or situational judgment test when it comes to applying for foundation jobs. So, if you're going to read any of the documents, if the three that I've mentioned is just too many and you have to pick one, I would go for this one. And again, they mention everything that you need to know, from like the duties of a doctor, some of the legal issues, some of the attributes, and there you go. If you have a look at the contents, you've got a section on knowledge, skills and performance, safety and quality, communication, partnership with teamwork, etc. Then the next document that I think is quite useful is a document on the NHS as a constitution. So let me just load that up. And basically this is a document, as it says, about NHS. And assuming that you're going to be studying medicine in the UK and becoming a doctor in the UK, it's good to have an idea of what exactly is the NHS, what exactly is our National Health Service, how does it work, what is the history of it, because you are essentially going to be part of the NHS, even as a medical student. So I've just loaded it up here. So this is the NHS Constitution for England, and as you can see, it's got the contents here. You've got an introduction, you've got some of the principles that guide the NHS as a system, you've got your NHS values. I think that's particularly important for you guys to have a quick read for the same reasons that I'm signposting you to some of those previous documents. And then a number of other things, so patients and the public, so some of your responsibilities as a medical student and potentially future doctor, and various information like that. So highly recommend that too. Next, we have got another document, and this is called the Consensus Statement on the Role of a Doctor. So again, as it says on the tin, this document will talk to you about the role of a doctor. And this document is quite important because a station that you may get as part of your interviews is testing your understanding of what exactly do doctors do, what is expected of them. And this document will be able to help you to refine your answer to those sort of questions. So just to show you on the page now, so again, this is a document from the Medical School Council, and it says that search results for, so it's the top one here, it's called Publication, Role of the Doctor Consensus Statement. And there you go, you can just open up a PDF, and this is quite a short document, it's only 3 pages, and again, it just talks to you a little bit about some of the roles of the doctor. This is also one that I would highly recommend, especially because it's short, so it'll only take you a couple of minutes to read through. And finally, the last document that I want to share with you is the Medical School Council's information sheets for students applying to medicine. Now, this isn't necessarily interview specific, it's just lots of important information for anybody who's interested in applying to medicine. So let me just get the page up. There you go. So this is essentially an entire page on resources for teachers and students. So you can just see there are a bunch of headings, so understanding medicine, what makes a good doctor, work experience, entry routes, a whole section on interviews. So some of these things that you may already know, but if you're reading any of the lists on here and you're thinking, oh, I'm actually not sure about that, this is a good place to gather all of your information. And again, I will link it below. All right, so those were all of the preliminary things that I would personally highly recommend you at least go and have a quick look of, even if you're not going to sit and read all of them. Now this then brings me on to the next step, which is resources to give you essentially advice and tips on how to get familiar with questions and how to start answering them. And the first resource that I want to signpost you to is one that we began with. So it was the Medic Portal application guide. And let me just get it on the screen now. Okay, so these are the final 2 sections on the contents here. So the section on free interview questions and how to prepare for medicine interviews. So if we go down to the free interview questions, you can essentially see here that you can start practicing. There are over 100 questions, and all of the questions here are provided for free, which is great. Now, if I just open this in a new tab and then scroll down, you can see that they've divided everything into sections, and I actually think this website is designed like beautifully. So you can see you've got a section of questions on background and motivation. You've got a section of questions about the depth of your interest, knowledge of medical school, empathy, ethics, creativity and imagination, personal insight, teamworking. You get the idea. So you've got all of these different sections, and let's say we pick one. Let's say we pick ethics. So you can see that you've got a section already here that's divided everything up, which is really nice. But if you scroll down, it is just plenty of information for you to read and just try to get your head around some of the biggest topics and biggest questions that come up. Can you hear the ambulance, guys? I live like right next to a hospital, so it's just ambulances constantly. Anyway, so some of the questions that are, you know, quite generic ones that they expect most students to at least have an idea or an opinion on is things like abortion. Do you agree with it? What are the ethical issues? Some other things, so patient refusing treatment for a life-threatening conditions or a condition. You'd be surprised how often you get that in hospitals. Then another issue on the contraceptive pill. All super important topics. But anyway, that's that on practice interview questions. Have a read of those just to give you an idea. Then if you scroll down to the final bit, there's a section on how to prepare for medicine interviews. And again, they've divided everything up beautifully into sections on the hot topics, into best tips for medicine interviews, and some of the interview practice questions that I've just shown you. So again, just to signpost you to individual pages on this website that I think are quite useful, I will link them below separately, but the first thing that I want to share with you is this page on medicine interview tips. So these are just a number of tips, for example, using the STAR technique to answer questions, how to use personal examples, how to use other people's praise to be able to sell yourself. Like, so instead of saying, I'm really great, you could say, I have been told that I'm very good at this thing. So certain interview techniques and tips in terms of presenting yourself. So this, I think, is a really useful page. The second page is the medicine interview questions, which I've already mentioned. And finally, and do you know what, I was genuinely surprised that this thing even exists, but, you know, because I didn't know this was a thing when I was applying to Birmingham, but a page on medicine interview tips depending on the university. So they've got specific tips based on where you've gotten your interview, because certain universities will favour various attributes slightly differently to others. So while one university may look more for, I guess, correct answers or something like that in their interview, another university might be looking more for empathy. So the fact that this is even a thing is really useful. Now that concludes that section on general advice and generally how to answer questions. The next section of resources that I want to share with you is YouTube videos. Now, as I said, YouTube is not lacking in content, and I'm sure you can find plenty, but today I just want to share with you some of my own personal favorites that I have either watched to aid my own understanding or ones that I specifically watched in order to help me prepare for my interview. And I think getting this kind of information from actual medical students who have been through the process is always really handy. So to begin with, the first person who I want to share with you, if you don't know him already, is Ollie Burton, also known as Postgrad Medic. Now, I generally love anything Ollie makes anyway, because I think all of his videos are really informative and jam-packed with useful information. But he specifically has a playlist full of, I think, 30+ videos all on medical interviews. So everything from how to answer questions or about specific stations like ethics or communication, which I think personally is really handy. So I'm going to link his playlist below. The second person who I want to share with you is Ali Abdal. Now, I watched his videos when I was preparing for my interview, and I think one of the best things about the playlist that he has on medical interviews is that he has managed to gather up a bunch of his friends and a bunch of people on his course and ask everybody for their opinions. So what's beautiful about this interview series is that you get multiple students' perspective on tackling certain questions within the interview. So again, highly recommended. I will put that below. Then the next person, or I guess you could say the next people, because I'm kind of combining them together, is Karma Bedik, or Nasir, and Kenji Tomita. Now, I think this was in 2018, where the two of them created a bunch of collaborative videos on certain MMI stations. So I think some of the videos are on Kenji's channel and some of the videos are on Nasir's channel. But I believe that each of them individually has also got playlists on medicine interviews, so I will leave both of those playlists below as well. I think their videos are amazing, all for people that I've mentioned, and I think you guys would benefit a lot from them. And there is plenty more on YouTube should you care to go and watch any, but those are just a few to get you started. Alright, now to wrap up this video, this is the final section on preparation. Honestly, the best way to prepare is to actually do practice interviews. Now, you can either ask a family or friend or someone you know, maybe within your school, to help ask you questions so you can just get in the flow of talking. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, or you're just feeling a bit shy and you need a bit of warming up, you'd be surprised how helpful it is to talk in front of a mirror, or literally talk to your camera. Get your phone, set your phone up, pretend that the phone is a person, and just practice. I think the art of doing that is to get comfortable with speaking words out and speaking your answers out, because you could have the most perfectly coherent answer in your head, but if you aren't able to articulate that out loud, then it's going to be a bit of an issue. And just literally talking to yourself, talking to your camera, talking to a mirror, whatever, that will help. Now, I've already mentioned the Medic portal and they've already got a bunch of questions to help with that, but there are 2 other resources that I found that I want to share with you as well, just on helping you to prepare. So just switching over to the screen capture, the first one is Medical School Interview Questions by the Royal College of Surgeons of England. And literally, again, these are just a whole list of questions that you can be asked that is good to just have a read through and get your head around. As you can see, there are literally plenty, so you can feel free to go and have a look at those. And last but not least, this is the ISC Medical School Interview Questions, and again, there is just a really large list broken down into different sections, just so you can read through and get a kind of an idea of the kind of questions you could be asked. So there you have it. This is essentially my starter pack to medical interviews. All of the documents will be linked below, all of the playlists that I mentioned will be linked below. So I really hope that you have taken something away from this and that it can help you in your medical school interviews. I know that they can be quite daunting, but honestly, it's true what they say. Practice really does make a huge difference. So with that, I want to wish you all the very best and all of the luck. I will leave it there and I will see you tomorrow. Take care and see you later.